line up with what would be a first round pick, although they're all over edge, they're all over D tackle, they're all over wide receiver. So we'll kind of dive into all that. I want to hit this comment real quick first, though. As Greg Rice in the chat says, FanDuel, cornerback is the slight favorite at plus 170, while defensive line / edge rusher is at 185. Wide receiver is the third most likely position at plus 430, followed by offensive lineman at plus 470. So when you kind of look at that across the board, it makes sense. It really does, man. And when you look at corner, we talked about it from the get-go. If you don't get that corner within the first couple of rounds, you're probably going to be clawing trying to find one little later. So this kind of lines up with what we talked about there. And then, of course, defensive line and edge rusher. Tim, the writing seems to be on the wall with Goody being very, very interested in somebody up on the front on defense.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And there's a lot to pick from. We talked about the depth, especially with defensive tackles in this draft. So, he can probably get a better pick of the litter, for lack of a better term, if he goes early, but there's no guarantee that he will. He doesn't necessarily have to go D-line right away. We've done a few mocks where we found some good talent, even into the fourth round, it seems, with some of these defensive tackles. So it'll be interesting to see what his game plan is. I do know this. I still have no idea what he's planning on doing with that 23rd pick, but I'm looking forward to the first round for sure.
Yeah. What about you, Jacob? What do you think about these odds, man? Does anything kind of stick out to you?
I'm a little shocked that offensive line is where it's at. I mean, if you're just deciding that, based on what happened last year, that it's not as likely, but it's about right. I guess it's about right where I would maybe put things. Maybe, yeah, nothing too crazy there. All right, watch us go and draft something completely. I mean, what else would surprise you off this list that they don't really have? A safety? Would that have to be the biggest surprise? Linebacker, maybe safety.
Yeah, something else that's not listed is tight end.
Tight end, yeah, there you go.
If we're truly looking for another legit weapon, and then let's say Tet McMillan's gone, let's say Matthew Golden and Emeka Egbuka's gone by the time you pick, and that means that one of the tight ends fall. Let's say it's Colston Loveland. Man, that might be the route you go. And I don't know what the odds are, Jeff or Greg. I'm sorry if you want to look at the odds on tight end, but if it's something like over plus 1,000. Probably wouldn't be a bad move if you're gonna belt multiples on these, and a lot of people do that, because you can go with 3 different positions and come out pretty profitable if you hit on one, and you hit on tight end that first overall pick or whatever for the Packers. That can be huge for sure. When you look at the draft board here, fellas, and we've got it sorted by top 30 visits, and just to kind of recap and remind everybody what all these colors and everything mean.
That's a Jake was asking.
Yeah. Is there a table and what the color? Yeah, there you go. So here's essentially what you got. What you really want to key in on are the gold, okay? These names in the gold: Shamar Stewart, Walter Nolan, TJ Sanders, Trey Amos, Jordan Burch, Jacob Bayer, Ty Felton, Anthony Belton, and Taylor Elgersma, okay? When you look at those players, and keep in mind the number on the right or the number on the left is showing you where their value is. So when you hear Taylor Elgersma, people going, "What are you talking about? We drafted him in the first 3 rounds." No. He's way down the list. This is just sorted by top 30 visits, okay? So if they've got the target, that means they were a top 30 visit. If they've got the heart eyes, that means they meet the athletic threshold, okay? The green just simply means that's a tier 1 position of importance. Now, we will overshadow that green with a gold if they meet what we call the gold standard. What that means is the Packers love Senior Bowl guys, and it also groups the Senior Bowl participants in with the top 30 visits. So that kind of makes them like, okay, these gold guys probably pretty high on the priority list would be my guess, okay? Just based off of what we did, I think last year, out of 11 picks, 8 of the picks participated in the Senior Bowl, right? And we know the top 30 visits have been pretty large hit as well. So if you take those 2 factors, that gives you the gold. And if you notice the spade to the left, right here, the little spade icon, the emoji, that means not only were they Senior Bowl participants and top 30 visits, but that means they meet the athletic threshold as well. So you get all 3 of those together, and that shows these guys are primed for the pick. Again, it doesn't mean the Packers are going to draft them. It simply means if they're available right around where they're at on the board for the Packers, they're probably really, really high on their list at that spot. And what I mean by that is, if the Packers come up at 23 and Shamar Stewart and Walter Nolan are gone, that doesn't mean they're going to take TJ Sanders at 23, because if their board looks like ours, he would be in the 39 spot, and that'd be one hell of a reach. Same thing with Trey Amos. Now, I'm not saying that's where Goody's got him ranked. I'm just simply saying if the board did look like that, that's what that would be. So essentially what you've got is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 players. And we may not get any more top 30 visit information. The top 30 visits wrap up on April 16th yesterday. However, sometimes that information gets held back. People don't get it reported, right? And then you find out after the draft, oh, he was a top 30 visit. You'll hear Goody say, yeah, we had him in for a top 30 visit. You go, damn it, we didn't see that one. Nobody reported it, right? Because not everybody will put out a tweet. Not everybody will put out an Instagram story going, hey, I'm in Green Bay. And the Packers darn sure ain't going to go out to the public and go, hey, guys, we're meeting with so-and-so. They're just not going to do it.
That's why we're grateful for guys like Easton Butler keeping us informed,
Absolutely. So there's 25 people that we have of the top 30 visits so far. So essentially you could take those 9 that we just talked about and say those right there, and I've looked everywhere, you can't bet individually on players to go to a team. You might have a handful of sites that you can do that toward the top of the draft. But if I could go through and put a little action on each one of these gold names, I would do it, because the odds would be astronomical, right? Like you could put a pretty good chunk down, spread it out over these guys. You're probably going to hit on 2 or 3 would be my guess. But with that being said, if you really wanted to narrow it down, those spades, we got that down to 5. So last year, for example, we narrowed it down to 7, right? 7 players. And of those 7, we ended up taking 3, I believe it was either 2 or 3, which is pretty good hit rate, right? So we're at 5 right now. Just keep that in mind. Did that answer the question? Does that make sense, guys? Did I explain that thoroughly enough?
I think so.
All right. Good deal. So, again, when we look at the odds, if we pull up Greg Rice's comment again, FanDuel cornerback is slight favorite 170. Who are they looking at? Well, let's look at the top 30 visits. Let's just start there, right?
Yeah, he actually revised that and said that he got fooled. He said that, I guess, AI lied. Defensive line, he updated the odds there, which make a little more sense to me, to be honest.
Okay, so it's defensive line / edge first, right, at plus 110. That makes sense, right? So if that's the case, who have the Packers met with? James Pierce Jr., Shamar Stewart, Walter Nolan, right? Tyleik Williams, also Michael Williams, right? Edge defender out of Georgia. So, I think TJ Sanders is a little bit of a reach for 23. So if you just go with those guys we just listed, starting at Tyleik Williams from the bottom, working back up, Tyleik Williams, it would be Michael Williams, Walter Nolan, Shamar Stewart, and James Pierce Jr. It's kind of, those are probably 4 or 5 that are kind of primed for the pick and at that 23 spot, if indeed those odds do end up working out, right? So that's how that would shake out. Now, if we move on to corners, which is plus 135, okay? So at plus 135, we got cornerback. The first one on our board is Savone Revel Jr. out of East Carolina in the 26th spot. And then you drop down to Trey Amos at 46. Now, again, they may have a first-round grade on Trey Amos, but on our board, that would suggest they would be trying to get him in the second round, or probably have to trade up in the second round to grab him if they don't have a true 23 grade on him, meaning he's worthy of the 23 pick there in the first round. So those are probably the 2 guys that they're eyeing the most. And again, they may have another guy that they like a lot more, right? These top 30 visits, most of the time, I was hearing Mike Tannenbaum talking about this earlier. And once again, everybody likes to ask these former GMs, do you ever try to bluff people? Is this smoke and mirrors? He said, absolutely not. That's what he said. He said, this is too valuable of information. You only get 30 of these. Typically, when they would bring people in for the top 30 visit, it means they had a couple more questions they need answered, right? And then that might determine whether or not they truly take them. It doesn't mean they would take them off their board. It might mean, hey, they would sink down on their board a little bit, or maybe they climb up a little bit on their board, right? But it just means they needed a little bit more information. So when you look at someone like Shamar Stewart, who may be there at 23, some people think he'll fall to the Packers, or Walter Nolan, if he goes earlier, what I'm noticing is I don't think there are any of these top 30 visits that I go, Packers will probably trade up for them. Maybe Tet McMillan, because he's in the 5 spot. So if he gets like within striking distance of, say, I don't know, if he drops to maybe 15 or 16, maybe the Packers have a package pre-set up like, hey, if Tet gets this far down, we're going to jump up and take him. Or maybe it's a James Pierce Jr. Could be that as well, right? I'm hearing a lot of buzz around Emeka Egbuka now. It seems like people caught on to him, like they really like him. So In terms of the offensive line, plus if that's true, plus 750, that's not bad there either, to be honest with you. Again, I don't know if I would feel good enough to put multiple action on defensive line, edge, and cornerback because you're kind of cutting into the profit there. But if you want to put a little action on maybe wide receiver, offensive line, which is a plus 750 and a plus 950, that'd probably be where you might be able to get a little bang for your buck. Linebacker, though, that safety at plus 4,900. Somebody's going to take that like Kevin Malone on The Office. What was it, John Cougar Mellencamp?
John Cougar Mellencamp ever wins an Oscar. I'm a very rich man.
I thought that was cool, though, Greg. I'm glad you brought up the odds there because it's important to kind of keep an eye on what Vegas is seeing, in terms of the odds of what player, what position, I should say, is being drafted first by the Packers. Anything else you guys want to add to that conversation? Anything stick out to you that I may be overlooking here?
Nah, I mean, I honestly, Backer might be one that could surprise a lot of people. What if, what's our guy from, Campbell? What if he were to randomly fall and just be there right at our laps? That'd be tempting.
Yeah, Jihad Campbell, listen, if he's there and the Packers feel good enough that, hey, we'll get him back sooner rather than later because of that torn labrum, I'd be okay with that. And I know people hate hearing that, but I think he's a stud. He's in the 22 spot on our board here, too. As you can see, now we're just back to the regular board. He meets the athletic threshold. The Packers have already met with him once. The blue simply means it's a position of tier 2 importance, which you guys know how I feel about that Mike Backer position, as well as safety as well. So, when you look at Jihad Campbell, man, that might be something the Packers don't have any questions on, Now, having the injury immediately following the combine, you would think they bring him in for a top 30 visit if they were interested to try to get a better look, get the doctors in there and looking at that shoulder a little bit. That would make a lot of sense, right? So,
yeah.
But,
can I ask you about Demetrius Knight Jr.?
Yeah,
South Kakalaki Gamecocks.
I like Demetrius Knight.
Yeah, me too. Where's he at on our board?
He's in the 71 spot. He was a team captain. He was a Senior Bowl participant. The only problem, Tim, is he did not meet the athletic threshold. Now, it doesn't mean the Packers wouldn't take him, but you guys know how they are about that, Yep. So that's an interesting kind of an interesting view on that as well. And some of the names, like we're in the 70s right now. We're looking at Benjamin Morrison. That one kind of pops to me. And you guys know I'm not very big on Benjamin Morrison. I think at the right spot, absolutely. But some people got him as a first-round talent. I just personally don't see it. But he's in the 75 or 74 spot. And the reason I say it kind of pops off the screen here to me is because he was a team captain. The Packers met with him, and he meets the athletic threshold. Kind of, pretty good chunk of what you're looking for there in a Green Bay Packer, if that makes sense. So, and we did add in a bunch of information from Dane Brugler's big board. It's interesting how you had to do with Dane Brugler. I'm going to call him out here as if he watches this show. If we have time to put together a board and rank them, why the hell don't they have time to rank them? They just go to the top 100 and the rest is like, all right, we'll just put a round grade on. No, come on, put your money where your mouth is. Let's and I love Dane. I think Dane is one of the best in the business, but what we had to do was go through and go, okay, once you get outside of the top 100 for Dane Brugler, you don't have them ranked in order. We just had to go off the grades and give everybody the same grade on that round, if that makes sense. So I went to the bottom of each round, so we're not cheating for these players. So like if it was a third round projection by Dane, we give him a 96, like he was ranked 96. Everybody in the third round, 96, so on and so forth, depending on the round in which he graded them. So. But in terms of Demetrius Knight, Tim, I would be okay with it at the right spot. But sure, again, that athletic threshold is the thing that would probably hang you up a little bit. Senior Bowl and captain.
Yep. And look, PFF grades look good on him the last couple of years.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. It's just the athletic numbers.
Yeah, and the main thing that brings him down on our board is the consensus big board at the end of the college football season. They had him in the 177 spot, right? And we do not have a grade for him for Dane Brugler yet, or a ranking yet, because I haven't got the linebackers. So we went through, I think I got corners, I got edge, I got D tackle. I haven't done wide receiver yet, but been just kind of going through it and putting them all in. So, yeah. Jacob, you got any questions on the board here, and maybe a player you want to see since it's shuffled quite a bit today, adding some Dane Brugler rankings in?
No, but, Elder Grimm says you misread. It should be Sean Dolak at 23. I think Emilio.
There's Emilio
Burner.
That's it. He ain't in class tonight. Who you kidding? Yeah.
He's in class.
Is he in class? Is that where he is?
Yeah. He's updating his Excel sheet though. Don't worry. He's staying in there.
All right. Anything else? We're good on the big board, right?